Marketer of the Day, episode 645, The Leverage Equation, Entrepreneurial Time Management, Productivity, and Communication with financial mentor Todd Tresidder.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're here with return guest Todd Tresidder, and Todd graduated from UC Davis with a BA in economics and a passion for creating successful businesses. And he's been a serial entrepreneur since childhood, and Todd went on to build his own wealth as a hedge fund investment manager before retiring at 35, and he grew his net worth from less than zero at 23 to the point of financial independence just 12 years later. And Todd has maintained his wealth by remaining an active investor and utilizing statistical and mathematical risk management systems for investing. And you can find his website at financialmentor.com, where Todd teaches advanced investing and advanced retirement planning principles. So take the next step beyond conventional financial advice and discover what works, what doesn't, and why based on years of proven experience in our conversation today. And you can find Todd's past appearance at marketeroftheday.com/223. We're all going to talk today about leverage and so much more. So, hey, Todd, how's it going today?
It's going good, Robert. Thanks for having me on the show again.
I'm glad to have you back on. And what I like about you is that you're all about having the smooth system, right? The well-oiled machine. And even when I was about to call you on Skype, you're the only person I've ever seen that has their Skype status as shoot me a quick message before you try to call. And I thought, man, I need to absorb that little tidbit myself of having my Skype message say, if you're going to call, shoot me a quick message first. That way it's not a scrambling to answer. It's not a missed your call thing. And also what I like about what you do is you're on a ton of podcasts. You have a ton of books. You have a ton of blog posts. You are a constant machine of cranking out good stuff. And I can really relate to that. So I respect that quite a bit.
Thanks. Yeah. Just take a step further, I keep Skype shut off. So it's only on when somebody has an appointment. And similarly, in terms of systems to manage time effectively, my email is, if you send an email to it, you get a immediate auto response explaining that the business has grown and, I can't possibly answer every email and, this is how things need to be addressed. I mean, it's kind of the nature of the beast today is we have to manage that communication flow so we can really focus on the critical things that affect the growth of our business.
Nice. So you're dialed into that 4-hour work week with the email auto response. And you're so right how important it is to have those boundaries. And I just think that, I was pretty late to the game as far as getting a cell phone, getting a smartphone. I got an iPhone about 10 years ago. And I thought to myself, man, if I had a smartphone back when I was in school, I probably would have failed every single class I had. It was such an addiction to fight those first couple of years of things popping up and having to make sure that I have, do not disturb mode and making sure that when I get an email, it doesn't just pop up everywhere. And especially in this day and age where there's all the apps and instant messaging and people are almost expected to be plugged in 24 hours a day, and there are message read notifications, and it seems like it's so much more important than ever to block the outside world so that way we can have those focused bursts of time to send the replies and actually pay attention to what's important so we're not just always distracted by all these notifications going off.
Yeah, I drive my family nuts because I've got a brand new, as we record this, it's 2019, right? April 2019. I have a brand new Google Pixel 3. It's, beautiful top of the line phone. Takes amazing photos. I have no social media apps on it whatsoever. I have almost no apps on it, just a few. I mean, I use the phone for email, for monitoring market quotes for positions that I trade or maintain. And that's about it. It's email, telephone, camera, and a quote monitor. I don't use it for any of the stuff. I don't play games on it. I don't do anything with it. It's like it's a phone. That's what it is. It's a phone. Some text messaging too. But even then, I'm actually known for not being very responsive to text messages. It's just I think there's going to be a wave in the future. Yeah, I'm old school, right? I'm an older guy. But I really think there's going to be a wave in the future where people realize the price of being constantly plugged in, both in terms of happiness, but in terms of the deep productivity that actually moves your business forward and moves your life forward. Cal Newport's doing some brilliant work on this, and he's somebody worth looking into. He's got a book out on it. But it's become a negative. It's reached the point where it's become a negative. I think people are waking up to it too, judging by how people are responding now.
I agree completely that it's fun at first, and it's fun to say, "Ooh, everything's synced up and everything's connected and everything's so convenient. I have infinity in my pocket." But I can definitely relate to it just becoming too much of a good thing, and sometimes I've had to have those weeks where I set my phone to monochromatic, black and white, so that way all the fun colors aren't popping up at me, and then it's not as much fun using my phone, which is painful at first, but then I use it less. And then also I've noticed that I use my iPad, like there's one game I play, and I only play it on my iPad, even though I could play it on my phone, I could play it on my computer, but there's something to be said about doing specific things in a specific physical space with a specific computer or a specific physical device, and it's really tempting to just say, oh, I'll load up my phone with everything and my computer or my tablet, but then all those boundaries are gone, and the next thing you know, you're just pulled in these different directions and you can't do what's fun and what's important, right?
Yeah, and this ties into the conversation at hand, which is leverage. And, for people who are marketers, marketing leverage creates all this noise that we're talking about that people are trying to avoid and deal with. And so one of the key principles in applying marketing leverage in your business is that you've got to figure out how to do it in a way that adds value so that people want your messages, that you're actually helping people and serving people rather than just adding to all this noise and clutter that we're referring to out there.
Yeah. And I mean, you see so much of that, right? You'll find someone's YouTube channel with a lot of posts and no views. You'll find someone's Facebook page where they're working their tail off and they're posting all kinds of stuff, but then there's no response to it. And so just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, so you're mentioning this concept of marketing leverage, and I just want to make sure that we all know what you mean by leverage, because when you say the word leverage, I kind of have a vague idea of maybe outsourcing, of maybe having money in a retirement account that's growing, but I'm not really sure of like exactly the precise definition of what you, Todd, personally mean by leverage. So can you explain that so that way we're all on the same track?
Yeah, so I wrote the book. The book we're talking about is The Leverage Equation. That's the most recent book I published. I have 6 books out right now, all on wealth strategy and financial strategy and wealth building and all that. And so I added this book, Leverage Equation, to the picture because people don't understand leverage. Most people, when they hear the word leverage, they think of financial leverage, like a mortgage or debt financing. Because of your background, you came in with some different angles on it, like leveraging time. That's the second most common one through employees and virtual assistants. So those are 2 forms of leverage, but there's actually 6 forms of leverage. And the interesting thing is the other 5 I'm referring to is not financial leverage, because most people just think in terms of financial leverage. The other 5 forms of leverage are unique in that they can both lower risk and increase return at the same time. Whereas financial leverage is unique in that it both increases risk and increases return at the same time. And so that's why a lot of people think leverage is risky when in fact it can be used to reduce risk and accelerate your business growth. And so there's 5 other types of leverage, so the first one's financial leverage, which is commonly understood. And then there's time leverage, technology and systems leverage is the second one, communications and marketing leverage is another one, network and relationship leverage, and knowledge and experience leverage. And so they're all different forms of leverage that you use to break through obstacles in your business. And that was why I wanted to write it, was that, people don't understand the application of leverage. They think it's just like the financial tool. They don't realize that any obstacle you face in your business and the growth of your business and limits your success, you can break through leverage. And the reason for that is it's an obstacle to your success because it represents or you're held back by some resource which you're limited to. You could be limited by your time, you could be limited by your knowledge or access to some other resource or network connection or whatever it is. But the reason that's an obstacle is because of a resource limitation. And so leverage is how you access resources outside the ones you currently control. And so that's how you expand your growth so that you get outside of the return for money equation, so that you can grow your equity faster than just return on investment. And it's also how you grow your income faster than just exchanging time for money. So it's all about accelerating your wealth and about breaking through obstacles that limit your success.
Awesome. And I think that we have all experienced that sometimes on a daily basis of hitting that bottleneck of saying, I'm working too hard, of saying there's got to be a better way. And so to recap those 6 types of leverage from your book, so we said number 1 is financial leverage, number 2, time leverage, number 3, technology and systems, number 4, communications and marketing, number 5, networking and relationships, and number 6, knowledge and experience. And this is a little bit eye-opening because like sometimes it seems like it just takes like one tool or one system to make things a heck of a lot easier. And what comes to mind right now for me is this whole thing we're doing right now here with this podcast interviewing. And it used to be like there'd be so much back and forth and figuring out time slots and figuring out Skype details. But most people now who run a podcast or who appear on podcasts have a sort of online scheduler where you set your open office hours in advance. Someone clicks and chooses a time slot, submits the information, and then it's a simple concept, but then it prevents 5 or 10 back and forth emails from happening. And even so that's sort of a technology side of things. And also on the terms of systems, I realized that I'm not sure if it's systems or if it's knowledge and experience, but with all these interviews I've done, and I'm sure you've kind of experienced the same thing, you have your go-to questions and topics, right? Like you hopefully and plan that you have a two-way conversation and things go in unexpected areas, but sometimes you have to fall back on that crutch of your stock questions or your stock talking points, and that just makes things move a lot easier if you have that little extra bit of preparation, it seems like.
Yeah, so let's look at this podcast, right? These things didn't even exist a few years ago, right? And so what was the breakthrough? Well, one was Apple providing the technology platform that everybody could leverage in order to, produce a podcast, publish it, and everybody would use their phones and have access to it. So there's a whole level of technology that's being leveraged, right? You gave the example of scheduling, right? For somebody that isn't in the podcast scene, they wouldn't appreciate this. But it's a nightmare to go back and forth with emails trying to coordinate schedules. Now we all have our schedule online, and we give permission for somebody to go book a time slot, right? Huge time saver. So that's an example of technology and systems leverage. But then we can also look at it and go, well, I'm leveraging your network right now, right? Because I'm getting access to your network to share my message and to get known and to spread the word about what I teach, right? Well, you're leveraging my knowledge for an interesting episode. So that's knowledge leverage and an example of network leverage, right? And we've got communications and marketing leverage, which is how this podcast gets distributed throughout the iTunes network as well as other platforms, right? So that's a form of communications and marketing leverage. So you and I have a 20-minute or whatever the length of the conversation is, and then that gets distributed one time. You and I have that conversation one time, but then it gets distributed to many thousands of people through the systems and marketing leverage. And so it just goes on and on. This is like one of those nested Russian, those Russian nesting dolls or whatever, where you open it up and there's an example of the same doll inside of it. And then it goes on and on. You keep opening them. There's smaller and smaller dolls inside, all identical but smaller. And it's the same thing with leverage. That's one of the cool things about it is a lot of people get overwhelmed when they hear all these 6 different types of leverage and, 9 principles of leverage and all this. All I'm trying to do is break it down so it's accessible. I'm trying to make it so it's actionable and that people can understand and segment it. But the way it works in practice is really pretty simple. When you go to apply leverage, what you're doing is you're looking at that obstacle, that thing that's holding you back from getting what you want, and then you leverage your way through it. The answer to getting through it, as I said earlier, is leverage. So you start with that obvious leverage point, and it'll be one of the forms of leverage usually. And then what happens is you go to solve that problem, you break through that obstacle, then it ends up naturally connecting to the other forms of leverage. So staying with your podcast as an example, if you want to get the message out about your business and what your unique selling proposition is in your business or your value proposition, you could start a podcast and reach lots of people through your podcast, right? So then that's solving a problem of outreach. So that's the starting point, is how do I create more outreach? Then you think, podcast, right? A form of communications leverage. And then in order to solve that podcast problem, then you drill down and you go, okay, I need technology and systems leverage. I need to leverage other people's knowledge. I need to do this. I need to do that. And they just start spreading out. But you just create that easy, obvious starting point and don't worry about the details.
Awesome. I love it. You're blowing my mind here, where it seems like this is sort of like everyone needs to kind of learn to be more of an entrepreneur, so to speak, right? And it seems like maybe the old school, old-fashioned way of thinking, of making money, of operating in general was to learn the rules, follow the rules, plan ahead, make sure things go according to plan. But I mean, things are changing and evolving so quickly now. It's like now the young kids, the millennials these days, are all about the side hustles, or they say things like they've hacked this, right? They've done the growth hacking, or they've hacked their education, and that's like I don't know. I don't really like that sort of language, but I like your language better. How you're saying, well, you're figuring out leverage, and you have a problem to solve, and then you use leverage to solve that problem, and then that opens up new problems in front of you. But that's more of like the startup entrepreneurial way of thinking, right? Of your problem's never going to be over, but then it's like you are on a path towards getting to where you want to go.
Yeah, again, that's why I wrote the book. You're dead on track. The traditional model of building wealth, planning for retirement, saving money, all that. What you do is you go out, get a job, you pay your taxes, pay your bills. Hopefully there's something that you can save after all that's done. Usually not. So you save what you can, and then you shovel it over to your financial planner, where he's supposed to have this magical asset allocation formula, and someday at the end of the rainbow, you're supposed to have a pot of gold. That's sort of the traditional old world model. And then what people are finding is that there's really much more to this game, right? Rather than just the traditional asset allocation framework that your financial planner can sell you, there's really three asset classes. You've got the paper assets, like what we're referring to, the traditional asset allocation framework, but you've also got direct ownership of real estate, and you've got direct ownership of business entrepreneurship. Now, as it turns out, if you look at how actual people build actual wealth, the vast majority comes from, no surprise, owning your own business and owning real estate, right? The data overwhelms traditional asset allocation. The only time asset allocation results in wealth is one of two things. You either pursue extreme frugality, so you don't need much money in the first place, but that means you have to live at a very low level for the rest of your life, or it results from a lifetime of compounding, so you end up with old age wealth, right? But by then, your life's pretty much over. You spent your lifetime getting to that point, so what good is it? So this is a very different framework. I call it the advanced planning framework, of which leverage is an essential component of it. And what it does is, again, it allows you to break your growth of equity from the return on equity equation, and allows you to expand your income without limits to your time. And these are very different frameworks. These are very different ways of understanding things, and they bring in the different asset classes. And it's no surprise that these alternative asset classes that result in a vast amount of wealth, as documented by independent research, it's not just Todd saying this. If you look at the studies, how rich get that way, that's how they do it. Those asset classes happen to have the most leverage opportunities and the greatest tax advantages. Again, no surprise. That's why the book was written.
Awesome. So basically, the old way is not going to do it for us, and especially in this day and age where people are going to live to 100, where in this day and age everyone is connected. So we need to have that new way of thinking, that new way of building our wealth, right? You always hear about how, especially in this last recession, a lot of people were just hanging on and hoping that their retirement account would pay out for them, would get them through, and then some people were caught off guard by the shakeup. So yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you where this new way of thinking is required. But with all these new things,
wait a minute, I just want to clarify something. Just to be clear, the old way isn't broken. It's not wrong. Right? It's the old way for a reason. It's been around for a long time, right? It's just slow and it's limited. And there's no reason for you to put up with that. There's no reason for you to take a slow path or limit yourself to just conventional asset allocation and a conventional job when there's two other asset classes that offer more opportunity or different opportunity that may fit you better, it may not. So what I'm not saying is right or wrong. I'm not making one right or the other wrong. What I'm saying is they have unique characteristics. Each asset class has unique characteristics. And when you're building your wealth, the way you succeed is by matching the characteristics of the asset class to the unique characteristics of your life, your time frame, your goals, the skills you bring, the resources you bring. All those things make you unique. Well, those have, it works like Velcro. All your unique characteristics act like the hooks on Velcro. Well, the loops on the Velcro are all the individual characteristics of the asset class. And the way you get rich is by matching those hooks with loops into a wealth plan that's unique to you. So it's not just the conventional framework. For some people, the conventional framework is fine. I'm not making it wrong. I'm just saying it's limited, and don't limit yourself. There's way more to this game than is commonly taught.
Awesome. Well, thanks for clarifying. And yeah, you're so right that we're all unique, and that it's good to have those options, and that the things that you do and the business you create is an expression of yourself, and some people's personality might not fit that 9-to-5 lifestyle, right? Some people might want to travel or set their own hours or work really hard, or some people might be more drawn to like managing a team or doing more of the technology stuff. So yeah, that's a great clarification there, that it's good to have more options, especially if our personality doesn't fit all of that traditional stuff. And so with all this talk about the obstacle is the way, so to speak, do you have an interesting story in your own travelings, in your own life, where you hit this wall, you had this obstacle, and then leverage was the way through it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, just recently, I'll give an example from my own business. My business, financialmentor.com, is writing and publishing. So I publish courses, I publish books, I have articles for content marketing. And the obstacle or the limit is my writing. I'm both the cog and the clog, right? And I have tried time and time again to hire writers, and I have failed time and time again because, financial writing requires a great deal of technical expertise, and you can't fake a financial voice. You either have it or you don't. And it was very problematic because my site provides advanced retirement planning, advanced wealth building, advanced investment strategy. It's not the mundane personal finance stuff, right? And I kept trying to hire writers, and they just couldn't do it. They just didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have the background. They didn't know what they were talking about. And so it was just this clog. It just kept slowing up the business. I mean, there's only so many hours I can write. Well, what I figured out just recently was that my writing time is about 80% editing and about 20% writing. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm not the world's greatest editor. And so I can edit out, I can leverage out all that editing. And I just recently got an editor that's very good, tried it, and it totally worked. And so I figured out a way to segment the writing process and find those pieces that I could actually leverage out to break through an obstacle or a limit.
So how did you come across that solution? Like, how did you get to the point where you were able to construct or abstract that in that way to know that that was the problem, that was the solution? I just kept diving into it. I mean, it's a limit. It kept limiting my success, exactly as I was saying earlier about you just look at what limits your success, limits what the limits that keep you from moving forward. And you just look at them and you say, what is that? Break it down. So I kept defining it as writing time. I never broke it down as what is my writing time. And then finally it hit me. I went, wait a minute, my writing time is 80% editing. And I'm not the world's greatest editor. I'm fine, but as it turns out, it's actually more effective to have an outside set of eyes edit your stuff because it brings a fresh viewpoint to it. So it retains your voice, but it brings an external viewpoint so you get more eyes looking at your material. Like it may even be better for me. I know in my books, they go through 5 to 6 edits, right? So they started a content edit, they work down through line edits, down into punctuation edits and all this stuff. So it's very detailed, and each person brings a different type of expertise, but each person reads the book front to end
and comments on it. And so by the time it's done, the 80-20 rule is complete. You've got most of the viewpoints that are going to apply to the book built into the edit, so it talks to most people. I should do the same with all my writing. I should probably run each article through multiple people.
And it seems like that's, for me, you're making me think of, like, many times that I have these ahas, it's when there's all these different things I'm doing or all these different problems, and then I'll experiment or I'll think of something in a certain way and solve that problem, and then say, well, that works so well, let me try to apply that in other areas. So like the scheduler with the podcast, that worked so well, I started using it for scheduling for one-on-one coaching. So it seems like with your answer there, it's that it's important to always be thinking about where's the bottleneck, where's the limit, even though that might be a little bit painful for some people. I mean, I know that I went through a long period of time where I was afraid to look at my bank account because either it was too much and who knows what I was going to owe in taxes, or it was too little and how was I going to scrape and move money around. And then I got the advice to say, well, just look at that balance every day. And it might be a little painful at first, but keep checking it every day, and then eventually you'll get a handle on things, and they were so right. So you're saying that it's important to see what limits our success and then do some sort of measurement. Like in your case, you were saying, well, what's my limit is the time in writing, so you were measuring your time in different ways. And then if the problem is too overwhelming, then try to break it down. And like you were looking into things like having someone else write or editing. So if the problem is just too big to figure out, well, then let's try making it a little better or breaking off a piece of it and fixing what we can fix for now, knowing that it'll never be perfect, but we're just always refining that system. So this is all a lot of great stuff for us to think about as far as leverage. So if people are listening to our conversation now and they're saying, man, this guy Todd, he came back and he over-delivered again. He has a lot of interesting things to say about leverage. I want to check out the leverage equation. I want to check out his blog. Where are we sending people to?
So my website, which is the hub of everything I do, is financialmentor.com. So two words mashed together to make one, financialmentor.com. And that's the hub of everything. There's, like 80, it's one of the largest collections of financial calculators on the internet. There's 80 free financial calculators because wealth is math, but people don't like doing math. So I make it really easy by giving free calculators that do all of it for you. It's got over 1,000 printed pages of content. There's 6 books. You can get the books anywhere where good books are sold, as they say. Obviously Amazon's one of them. So you can look up my name, Todd Tresidder, or you can go search The Leverage Equation. You'll find that in my other books. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's how you can find me. I have a expectancy wealth planning course, which this book is excerpted from. The Leverage Equation is actually just 2 lessons in a 7-module course. So 7 modules with bunches of lessons in them. And Leverage Equation is 2 lessons excerpted from that course became this book. So you can check that out as well. It's called Expectancy Wealth Planning, and it's step 3 of 7 steps to 7 figures on my website.
You're a machine. 7 books, 1,000 pages of printed content, all these courses and 80 calculators. I mean, do you have a secret to all that? Is it just a matter of putting in the time every day or finding the fun and the excitement? Or how are you so prolific with all this?
It's persistence. I mean, I probably work 8-9 months out of the year, but when I work, I'm pretty focused. And you could tell from the beginning of the interview where, I really control my time and where I put my time, because I know that the content, the courses, and the books is what determines the future of the business. It's not, phone calls and social media and other distractions. So I put my time on the tasks that matter. It's focused on those critical things that determine success. And then I'm persistent. I've been doing it for years. That's how I ended up with the URL Financial Mentor. This dates back to 1998, so it didn't just happen overnight. So you got to have a clear plan, and then execute it with persistence and consistency, and you'll produce results.
Awesome. Well, very, very aspiring, very inspiring, I should say, and something to aspire to. So check out what Todd has going for him. Check out his book, especially if you got a lot of info nuggets out of today's talk. I mean, I know that I sure did. And maybe you even caught a little bit of Todd's infectious energy, and that pursuit of helping people and being accurate and precise and getting a lot done and not wasting time, because you don't know how many Mondays or Wednesdays you have in advance for you or how many weekends. And so it's important to do the things you were put on this earth to do. It's important to manage your time properly. It's important to have leverage in the financial sense, in the time sense, in the technology sense, communication, network, and knowledge. So the place to dive deep into all that and get a lot of stuff done and not just learn things but also apply things is to get that book, The Leverage Equation, where all good books are sold, to check out the blog at financialmentor.com. And if you want to go into the advanced financial stuff, then check out Expectancy Wealth Planning. So once again, financialmentor.com and The Leverage Equation. So thanks so much, Todd, for once again blowing our minds and letting us in on all the new amazing breakthroughs that you've had recently. So I appreciate you hopping on and telling us all about that, and thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me back on the show, Robert.
You're very welcome. Subscribe to us right now while it's still fresh on your mind at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes.